Good morning, students. Today's topic is male reproductive system, first part. In that, we'll specifically talk about functions of testis. Testis, as you know, are male gonads, so their functions in detail we'll talk about. As you can see in the diagram, it shows the male reproductive system. In A, there is all the gross parts of the male reproductive system, like you can see right from testis above superior to the testis. You can see epididymis. Of course, testis is present in a sac called scrotum, and above the testis there is epididymis, and from there epididymis extends as vas deferens. Vas deferens goes posterior to the urinary bladder, and it forms something called ampulla of vas deferens, a little widened structure of vas deferens itself called ampulla. And other structures called seminal vesicles, they open into these vas deferens, and they form something called ejaculatory duct. Okay, so the ejaculatory duct then enters the prostate gland, which continues as urethra. So urethra, especially prostatic urethra and penile urethra. So before the prostatic before the penile part of the urethra starts, one more gland called bulbourethral gland opens into the urethra. Okay, and then the urethra goes through the penis and opens outside. Right, you can see glans penis, prepuce, erectile tissue, urethra in the yellow, and everything else. Right, so this is the gross structure of basic structure of male reproductive system, and it's the gonad and the duct system. Right, now coming to an enlarged figure of the testis itself in the section B. In the figure B, if you can see, the testis is consists of a lot of convoluted structures, highly coiled structures called seminiferous tubules. Seminiferous tubules. So they are highly coiled. Around each testis contains around about 900 such seminiferous tubules. Right. So each one it is highly coiled, but each one will be at around half meter in length, which are coiled in over itself. So within these, the seminiferous tubules are sperms actually formed. Right, so these sperms then go and empty into epididymis, another coiled structure. So basically these seminiferous tubules, they all join to form something called reed testis, and all these the reed testis continues as efferent ductules, and that all these things will continue it as epididymis. Epididymis is a long structure. It has head, something called head of epididymis, and tail of epididymis. Okay, so epididymis is further highly coiled structure, another coiled tube which is around 6 meters in length. 6 meters. You can imagine how coiled it should be, right? So the epididymis, it leads into vas deferens. It enlarges, vas deferens continues and enlarges into something called ampulla of vas deferens. Okay, which is immediately before the vas enters the body of prostate gland. Right, then uh, two seminal vesicles, one located on each side of the prostate, they empty into prostatic end of the ampulla. Okay, that means these two seminal vesicles, they, as I told you before, they empty into prostatic end of the ampulla, and the contents from both ampulla and seminal vesicles pass into what, both they continue as ejaculatory duct. Okay, which continues as the into the prostatic gland, then it continues as urethra. Okay, so prostatic ducts also empty from the prostate gland into ejaculatory duct, and from there into prostatic urethra. Right, so these are the basic structures. uh, there are some other glands called Cowper's glands or bulbourethral glands at the origin of the urethra. They secrete certain what do you call, the mucosal substances, mucus substances into the uh, into the semen, which we will discuss later. Okay. Now, after having a brief idea about the structural aspects of the testis, male reproductive system, and testis, we'll further move into the basic functions of testis, and and the details of how uh, how the functions occur because of the testis, right? So if you observe this diagram figure, um the figure A, it shows the cross section of seminiferous tubule. I mean, basically, as I told you, testis contains a lot of coil structures called seminiferous tubules. This is the place where actually sperms form. Sperms are the male gametes, as you might be knowing already. So this is the place where in the seminiferous tubules are formed the sperms, or spermatozoa. Spermatozoon is singular, spermatozoa is plural. So, or simply we can call sperms. So the sperms or male gametes are formed in the seminiferous tubules. So how does it appear, the seminiferous tubule? If you see the cross section, it shows something like this. The A part, the gross structure. So that is the central luminal part is actually the tubule, lumen of the tubule, and all the cells, they are the germinal cells and Sertoli cells, and other fibroblasts, etc. And if you observe, there are some other types of cells in the corners everywhere. They are nothing but interstitial cells. Interstitial cells of Leydig. They are simply called interstitial cells, or interstitial cells of Leydig, or simply Leydig cells. Okay, so what basically these sperms are produced in these seminiferous tubules. How they are produced and all, we'll go to it later. So these seminiferous tubules produce sperm, a process called spermatogenesis. That is one part. And another part is Leydig cells, interstitial cells of Leydig. They secrete a hormone, very important hormone called testosterone. One of the, I mean, the most important androgen. Androgen is a word which you use for any male sexual hormone. So any male sexual hormone, you can call it as androgens. There are certain types of male sexual hormones. Out of that, most important, or uh, most quantitatively also most I mean significant is testosterone itself, right? So these Leydig, what I'm trying to say is these Leydig cells secrete testosterone, and seminiferous tubules uh, cause production of sperms. So production of sperms and production of testosterone, it all occurs within what? Within the male gonad, that is testis. So in other words, the functions of testis are production of male gamete, or the sperm, and of course the testosterone, which is required for sperm production. It is required for um, primary sexual aspects as well as secondary sexual characteristics. For everything male related aspects, testosterone is essential. So that is something. And one more thing, I mentioned, I used a word called Sertoli cells. Sertoli cells, as we discussed in the previous class also, they are present in within these seminiferous tubules. They are large, especially they are very large cells, kind of they are rich in, I mean, they have a lot of cytoplasm. They if you see in the down, I mean, figure B, part B of this figure, you can see it shows the various stages of spermatogenesis. So basically the germ cells, primordial germ cells, they settle in these peripheries of this tubule, which are nothing but called spermatogonia, or spermatogonium singular. You can see in the figure also. So these spermatogonia, as and when they get activated, I mean, they start involving in the process called spermatogenesis. They gradually divide and move towards the lumen part, that is the tubular actual part. So within this transit, they come across, or they are surrounded by these big cells called Sertoli cells, which are very very essential uh, for the division, differentiation and maturation of this spermatogonia into finally into sperms. All right. So finally, the basically functions of testis is production of sperms and uh, the androgen, that is testosterone. So how is this? How is that sperms are produced in the seminiferous tubules, and testosterone is produced in the interstitial, by the interstitial cells of lady. That is basically the important thing. And coming to mm, the Sertoli cell, what do they do? Sertoli cells, they secrete one thing, as we discussed before. They secrete the Mullerian inhibiting substance within the intrauterine, in the gestational age, gestational duration. uh, when the fetus growth start occurs in those earlier weeks itself, the Sertoli cells, they produce something called Mullerian inhibiting substance, which causes inhibition of Mullerian duct system. So finally only Wolffian duct remains, which develops further into male reproductive, the male duct, reproductive ductal system, as we discussed. Also, under the effect of one of the gonadotropin hormones, that is follicle stimulating hormone. Again, don't get confused, we'll discuss the things later also, what gonadotropins are, etc etc. So for now, there are two gonadotropins. Already you might be having an idea of it. Gonadotropins are follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, right? So the FSH, they are released from, of course, anti-repituitary. So these FSH hormone, the gonadotropin follicle stimulating hormone, whenever it acts on the, it reaches the Sertoli cells, these Sertoli cells get stimulated. These Sertoli cells grow and secrete certain spermatogenic substances. Okay, certain spermatogenic substances, such that the the division, differentiation and finally production of sperms is possible, right? As well as the testosterone which is released from the Leydig cells also is important. It has also strong tropic effect on spermatogenesis, right? So why I'm telling all these things is, basically again and again we are saying the basic most important functions of testis are, one is what do you call, reproductive function, that is the basic uh, production of spermatogonia, spermatozoa. And the other thing is uh, production of male sex hormone, that is testosterone. So how is this possible is the basic things I am telling. This production of sperm is made possible by all these things. The spermatogonium, which is the primordial germ cell, which it goes on to form sperm finally. We'll talk about the steps and all in the next class. So for this you need the help of Sertoli cells, right? Sertoli cells stimulate this entire process, and Leydig cells are needed for production of testosterone, right? Now, this is grossly about uh, functions of testis.